Welcome to Even the Dog Has ADHD, because apples don't fall far from trees and it's never just one. I'm Diana, and today I've got Mark with us, who's going to share his story about what it's like having neurodivergence in his family. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, Diana. Hi, everyone. Great to be with you. I'm Mark Arnold. My day job is I'm the Additional Needs Ministry Director at Urban Saints. I write as the Additional Needs blog father, and I'm the founder of the Dad's Fire Circle, a place that gathers dads of children and young people with additional needs together. And I'm also dad to James, who's now 22 and he's autistic, has learning difficulties, and a range of other additional needs too. So it's great to be here to chat with you today, Diana.
Oh, thank you. It's really lovely to have you. When we met, actually, it was you run webinars, don't you, through Urban Saints for parents, but also for people working in as volunteers in a church environment.
Yes, that's right. So you remember when lockdown started, all those
Yeah.
years ago when lockdown started, and I looked at my diary at the time, and it was full over the following few months of training and conference events that I now couldn't go to. And so I thought, what am I going to do to keep getting this message to encourage people that are journeying with children and young people with additional needs of any kind to help them and support them. So I took that training online and started to run training sessions through Zoom, posting out workbooks to people, creating video content that supplemented the training and making that available. And so offering the same sort of support, but now online. And although all those lockdowns and all those things are behind us now and hopefully stay behind us, those online seminars and training sessions continue and are still popular, and still people book up on them. And as you mentioned just now, it's a combination of folk that children's, youth, families workers, parents and carers themselves, anybody who journeys with and supports children and young people and young adults with additional needs and disabilities of any kind.
And your own journey began when your second child was born, James.
That's right. So James has just celebrated his 22nd birthday. So our journey has been quite a few years now. When James was very small, we started to see some developmental differences between him and Phoebe, our eldest, our first child. And increasingly that started to raise questions for us, and we started to seek help to understand those differences better, and to know what they were and what they meant for James and what they meant for us as a family. And so when James was 2.5, he was then diagnosed as being autistic and having learning difficulties. And so that then opened up a whole new world for us, a world that we knew really very little about at all. And that's obviously, the experience of most families that are on that journey. And so, yeah, we suddenly had hundreds of questions and very few places that we could find answers. And so our journey there began to explore that more, to try and understand and answer those questions and seek the help that was needed, but then to see how we could pass those learnings on and help other families that are on a similar journey to our own.
I remember, I know from my James, one of the first things that we were exploring was hearing.
Mm.
And I think you had a similar experience prior to the autism
We
diagnosis.
did, yes. We started to get appointments through for various tests for James, and one of the first ones was a hearing test, and we took him along to it, and he failed it magnificently. And we thought, okay, maybe this is part of the answer then. Maybe James has a hearing issue. And so, for a day or so, that was the hypothesis that we were working towards. But a day or two after the hearing test, it became clear that James actually had an ear infection, and that had significantly impacted the results of the test. So when his ear infection had cleared up, the test was redone and he passed it with flying colours. And so it was clear that that first failing of the test was because of the ear infection that was already happening for him. And so we were able to sort of cross that off the list and then move on to the eventual diagnoses that we received for James.
So you've mentioned autism, and then you've also mentioned other learning difficulties. What does that look like?
So James is almost entirely non-verbal in his communication. Now obviously, he communicates, but he does that in different ways, through gestures, through pointing, through sounds, sometimes through using symbols. He has a handful of words, and they're quite helpful words to have, like no or please, that sort of thing. Happy is another one, which is always good to hear. So that obviously has an impact on James and on us as a family. As we communicate with James and he communicates with us, we have to tune in to what he's trying to communicate to us. And usually we can pick up on that. Sometimes it's a bit more subtle, a bit harder, and it takes a little longer, and that can be frustrating for James. But yeah, so that's one example. James can't read or write. There are lots of things that a typical 22-year-old can do that aren't part of James's makeup. Lots of things that he enjoys doing anyway. But yeah, so there are some differences there as a consequence of the learning difficulties that James had. Later on in his life, when he was 15, he also then was diagnosed with epilepsy and anxiety as well. The anxiety triggered by the onset of epilepsy, and the anxiety has a big effect on James. It means he struggles to go out, and if we are out, he struggles to get out of the car wherever we might have gone. We can only go to a very limited range of places with James, and that anxiety also impacts his transitions around the house as well. So even basic things like getting up, going to the toilet, having meals, all sorts of things can take a long time because James can struggle with the anxiety that those transitions can bring.
Hmm. And one of the things I remember you saying is that you do manage to go to something regularly during the week, towards the end of the week.
Mm.
Uh, your father and son. Sorry, I
Yes, yeah, we take James to a community centre session, and he makes a craft picture or has a craft activity which he really enjoys. And now, because James struggles to get out of the car, often the craft activity is brought to him in the car, and I sit with James and support him to be able to complete the craft activity. But it's a lovely moment that we spend together working on the picture that we're doing this particular week. And yeah, it's great just to share that time with him, and then to be able to share his artwork with the world. And I post it up on social media, and lots of people see it and comment about it, and that's really encouraging for James, for us, to be able to show that, yeah, although there are lots of things that James can't do, there are things that he can do as well. And whether it's going to do the craft session at the community centre, or when we're baking cakes together, or whatever it might be, yeah, it's great to be able to show everybody that actually, yeah, there is hope, and there are things that our children of any age are able to do if they're supported to do them.
Mark, you're just so amazing, and I know as a father that there's a lot that goes on for you, and that inspired the dad circle
Mm.
that you've mentioned. And and the kind of support and mental health support essentially for fathers. Do you want to share a bit more about the kind of why you set that up and what
Yeah.
that's
So
like for people?
the Dad's Fire Circle, we talked about lockdown just now. The Dad's Fire Circle was another of my lockdown things. And it was born really out of the journey I've been on as a dad, and
Mm.
the lack of support that is out there for dads of children with additional needs of any age. And during lockdown, I was thinking about that, thinking about some work that I'd done where I'd been able to gather some dads together at a conference, and thinking about how important it is for dads to be able to share a bit of their journey with other guys that get it. And so the Dad's Fire Circle came from those thoughts and became a place, often online, occasionally in building somewhere, where dads can come together and share their stories, share the things that worry them. Often they'll talk about things like how they feel they need to be the strong one, the one that holds it all together, but actually that's really hard and they're really struggling just like everybody else. And they'll have feelings that they've bottled up for many years that they've not told anybody about. That stereotype that us guys aren't great at talking about our feelings. Well, it can be true, particularly in this demographic of dads of kids with additional needs of any age. And so once we get dads talking and sharing, and they just unburden themselves of all this stuff they've been carrying, and know that they're being heard by other dads, other guys who get it, who are on a similar journey, who perhaps have experienced some of those feelings themselves. And it's a great opportunity for us to give each other a virtual or an actual hug, and a bit of encouragement, and to say, hey, we hear you, we get it, and maybe offer some ideas and things that have been helpful to us on our journey that might be helpful for another dad as well. So it's a really great place. We get dads that come regularly when we gather online. We monthly gather online, and new dads that rock up and share with us as well. And it's just there's a real sense of the need for this across the country and beyond as dads gather together and journey together.
Yeah. I've got so many. I'm not sure which way to go with this now, but so I'm just thinking of the other people in your family and stuff that you've shared about Phoebe, and
Mm.
remembering, during as she was growing up, what that looked like for her, where you guys as parents, there was a lot of energy being focused on James. Do you want to share a bit more about that?
Yeah, so having just talked about one group that can often feel themselves a little bit on the sidelines of things in dads, another group that applies to as well can be siblings of children and young people with additional needs. And as you mentioned, our daughter Phoebe, who's a couple of years older than James, her life growing up was different to her peers because Phoebe has a disabled brother, and those differences came in lots of ways. Lots of siblings become junior carers at home, helping out to support their parents in looking after their brother or sister. They can miss out on things. I know, lots of times when we were planning to do something, even a holiday, that had to be cancelled at short notice because James was just not in a place where he could cope with that at that time. Some siblings are bullied because they've got a brother or sister with additional needs. And often in our church, and this is common. I've come across this story in lots of places, but in our church, sometimes Phoebe would be referred to as James's sister. And then as she was a bit older, she would point out that whilst that's absolutely true. And Phoebe does love James very much. Her name's Phoebe. She's got her own identity, her own character, but often that could all get wrapped up in James, because all the support and care needs that James had. And so, yeah, siblings often need extra support to to navigate through life themselves. And just as with dads, I founded the Dad's Fire Circle with that in mind. For those siblings, those brothers and sisters, there's organisations out there like sibs.co.uk that links siblings together and resources them and hears them and supports them. And that's such a vital work.
It really is. Now, tell me a bit more about school age, James, and how that worked for you as husband and wife and working. What did that look like for you guys?
Yep. So James started school age 4. Because of his early diagnosis, he was registered with one of the special schools in the area, and he started attending that aged 4 and was there almost to the end. I mean, it was a bit of a struggle the last year or so as he came up to finishing age just 19. But he did stick with it. There were some bumps along the way. The biggest bump was when epilepsy arrived, when James was 15, and the associated anxiety, which meant that James became housebound for 14 months. He didn't go anywhere, including school. And so that was a challenge. We did gradually get him back into school after that 14-month period, increasing it a little bit every now and then. And we were there 3 days a week by the time lockdown started. We were just about to go to 4 days a week at that stage. And we did get him back again after that, just for a bit too. But often that meant that we had to take James to school. Often that was me that was taking James to school. My wife, Claire's in primary education herself, so she's in her school, and I was then taking James into his school. And for a while, there was a rhythm where I would take James into school, and then the staff there allowed me to use their staff space as a bit of an impromptu office. And so I'd just get on and do some work there, a bit of writing or something, and just hang around for a bit to see if James settled. And then once he'd settled, I was then able to head back home and then come back and collect him a bit later. So we had to be flexible and to make sure that James's needs were met first, but that we also juggled all the other things that we needed to juggle to allow us to both keep working, to also look after Phoebe as she was growing up, and do all the other stuff that we needed to do to keep our little ship floating in the right direction.
Now, we mustn't forget the fifth member of the family, and how your four-legged one came to the family. We have a similar story, I think, about the idea of how a dog could be a therapy dog. Do you want to share a bit more?
So when James was 6, Phoebe was 8, nearly 9. We thought it would be a great idea to get a dog, and the idea was several fold, really. Phoebe was desperate for a pet dog. We thought it might be a help for James, a bit of an assistance dog for James, or a therapy dog for James. So we got Ella. Ella, our Cocker Spaniel. We got her as a puppy, and she came into our lives, and a bundle of fun and excitement. She didn't achieve all the things that we had hoped that she would achieve, particularly that role of being an assistance or therapy dog for James. In fact, what actually happened was they just became competitors for food. So whenever James had some food, Ella would be there trying to get it. James would be there fighting her off and trying to protect his food. and so their relationship was forged around a battle over any food that was there. So yeah, Ella's 16 now. She's an elderly lady. She's a bit blind and a bit deaf, but she still tries to get James his food if she gets a chance. And James still complains bitterly about that at her if that happens. So yeah, so you have a relationship of sorts, just not quite the one that we hoped it would be.
Very relatable, Mark. Very relatable. Um, but Phoebe quite enjoyed Ella, didn't she, when she was younger? I do remember that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she loves Ella very much, and although Phoebe is married now and living up in Winchester with her husband Charlie, and in full-time ministry herself, when she's at home, when they come and visit, which is regularly, Phoebe always spends time with Ella and fussing over her and catching up with Ella. So yeah, there's a good relationship still there. It was Phoebe that chose Ella from the group of puppies at the breeders that we got Ella from, and there were all these keen, eager, intelligent-looking cocker spaniel puppies, and right at the back, sort of wandering around and not really noticing what was going on, there was Ella, and that was inevitably the one that Phoebe fell instantly in love with. Um, we think that Ella probably has doggy dyspraxia. Lots of issues with coordination of movement and thought and so on that go on there. So yeah, I think we've got a neurodivergent dog to add to our family over the last 16 years. But yeah, she's a joy, and as she comes to those twilight years now, we're making the most of each day, because we don't know how long we've got her for now. Really, she's coming up to 16, which is a brilliant age. Yeah, each day and each moment, each walk are precious to us.
Hmm. And she's had an impact, hasn't she, with what you do as a couple in terms of arts and craft fairs?
Yes. So I mentioned that my wife Claire's in primary education, but she has a side hustle. And her side hustle is that she makes dog toys and treats and things for dog owners under the name of Barking Bobbins. And she's got an Etsy page where she sells those. But we rock up, we get invited to dog shows and things like that, and that's great because it's something that we can do as a couple. We've got good friends that will come and look after James for the day whilst we are out, and so we head off to somewhere in the sort of Dorset, Hampshire area to yeah to be at a dog show or a craft event to show off Claire's Barking Bobbins handmade stuff, and it's great just to be able to do that together as a couple, spend that time together, enjoy just being somewhere together, and those times are really important. And yeah, for families to carve out that bit of time to just spend as a couple and not constantly be just thinking about the care needs of our children with additional needs, that makes a real difference.
Yeah, I know that that's really important. And you mentioned, and then the kind of the wider support in terms of friendship, like creating your tribe around you as a
Mm.
family. What's been really key? You mentioned your friends that will come and take care of James. Is there What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so having folk that get it, folk that are willing to step in and help out really makes a difference. And yeah, we've got a little group of friends that do that for us and give us the opportunity to keep doing the things that we do. Now, that could be that there's a day where I need to go and run some training somewhere, or go to a conference. And I mentioned Claire's in primary education. She can't just suddenly abandon the class and spend the day at home. So one of our friends will come round and spend the time with James until one of us gets back. It could be that we're going to one of Claire's Barking Bobbins events, or whatever that looks like. It's great to have that support network of people that get it, that love James, love to come and spend time with him, that he gets on well with, and is happy to spend the time with. And it's also really healthy for James to have other adults around to have relationships with, as well as just us as family. So
Yeah.
him seeing other people and engaging with other people, has really positive aspects of it for James, as well as obviously for us as family as well.
And then just on that with James and peer-to-peer friendships and school,
Mm.
what does that look like now after, well, now that he's a young adult, really? You've mentioned other adults around. What does that look like in terms?
Yeah. So James didn't forge much in the way of peer-to-peer relationships with pupils. There were one or two in his class that he got on better with, and one or two that he didn't get on so well with at all. Uh, but yeah, these days, it's difficult um, to to engage James with the things that his peers are doing. At the community centre, that's great because there are other people there that go and do the craft activity. But James is doing that generally in the car. He has, for a period, he did go in and engage with it there. But one of the reasons that he struggled was it was quite loud. And
Yeah,
James is very sensitive to loud noise, so he found that hard and found it more comfortable to do the craft activity in the car. So but that's why when James's carers come round to support him when Claire and I are both out of the house, that's really great, because it means that he is engaging with other people. He
yeah,
does have good relationships with them. In most cases, they're people that he's known for many years,
yeah,
and so there's a real sense of recognition and of being pleased to see people when they
yeah,
come and visit. So that's really great. I mean, James is known around the world. His profile and his story is known by thousands and thousands of people.
mm,
But he, yeah, and he's a little bit aware of that. I
mm,
show him the things that people say and the responses to his story, and and that's great, just to help him to know that actually there are people all over the world that care about him and are interested in him and want to know how he's doing, and that's great for us. That's great for James.
and then kind of like back to you, Mark. Like the beginning of your career wasn't where it is now, and you have one brother,
Mhm.
and you talked like share a bit more about your mum and dad and brother. It's just
Yeah, so I've got a brother who's 7 years younger than me, and he works in IT. I worked in IT and telecoms for the first and quite long part of my career, and that uh, for quite a long time was running technical training teams for telecoms companies. My brother works in the NHS in IT there, and sort of got into IT through me being in IT and him being interested in the stuff that I was doing. And so he's still there, although I've left that now. I've been working at Urban Saints now for oh gosh, 17, nearly 18 years. So yeah, quite a career shift for me there. But yeah, mum and dad lived in the next street to where we live today, and so yeah, I'm still in the same neighbourhood as the one that I grew up in as a young boy. Uh, Dad got called home to glory a couple of years ago now, and actually today, as we're recording this, is his birthday. So I was thinking about him earlier, and yeah, you still miss them, don't you? I very
Yeah.
much miss my dad. I used to do a lot of stuff with my dad, and yeah, he taught me a lot about being a good dad. That's been helpful for me as I've journeyed with James and with Phoebe. Mum, because of her care needs these days, she's yeah, getting into her mid 80s. She's in residential care, and yeah, she's doing okay. She's doing okay, and it's through her that I have a faith, because it was my mum that was the first of our little family group that came to faith, that wanted to explore faith more,
Mm.
and so yeah, we all ended up uh, going to church and learning about things there, and so that's had a transforming impact on my life as well.
Mm. And she worked in a school, didn't she?
She did, yeah. So she worked in a school as a dinner lady. So whether that was serving the meals or whether that was out in the playground supervising the children that were there. So she actually did that role at the primary school I went to, not whilst I was there.
Mm.
I think she did whilst my brother was there.
Mm.
But yeah, she did that for many years. So and she was very involved in the Sunday school and creche at our church as well. She led both of those through her years for many years, and so had a real impact on generations of children that came through that work. And yeah, her faith and her passion for that work live on in the lives of lots of people who are now, adults, well into adulthood, but that nevertheless she had a significant role in their faith formation.
Yeah, and yourself moving from IT to Urban Saints, and Phoebe and what she's doing now. What's the organisation that Phoebe,
So
remind me?
Phoebe works for Friends International,
Right.
and Friends International support overseas students that come to study in the UK. Her
Mm.
patch is Southampton and Winchester, so the universities and colleges across that area. And what she does is, these are particularly Christian students that have arrived in the UK to study and are looking for a support network of other Christians, looking for churches to connect with. And Phoebe and her Friends International colleagues provide that. And so there are all sorts of activities, getting to know the area, getting to know each other, getting to know local churches, and to be introduced to what they're doing that Phoebe does. So yeah, she's coming up to the end of her first year there,
Mm. Mm.
and is loving it. And yeah, I'm thrilled and proud and delighted that she's gone into full time ministry and is thriving in there as she does that.
And there's something about that, isn't there, about bringing people together, and just thinking back to how that seems to be a real passion for you around the fire
Mm.
circle and the work you do through Urban Saints. And I'm not sure if you've mentioned in this recording about the blog father. Do you want to
Yes.
talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about bringing people together to share their journey. When we do that, when we bring people together, we can help each other. we can form community, we can feel less isolated and marginalized because there are other folk that get it and that are on that journey too. So whether that's through the Dad's Fire Circle or whether that's through the Additional Needs Alliance, another group that gathers children's, youth, families, workers, parents and carers, anybody that's passionate about working with kids, young people, young adults with additional needs, then they gather together through the Additional Needs Alliance, but also, as you say, through my blog as the Additional Needs Blogfather, just sharing our story, sharing ideas and tips and things that can be helpful to families or to people that are supporting children and young people with additional needs. Just getting a message out there to help folk that are on that journey too. And the Additional Needs Blogfather reaches around the world. That almost every country in the world, there are people that follow the Additional Needs Blogfather blog page. A little while ago, it went through 500,000 views, which staggered me. I was amazed that many people have viewed and read and been helped by the writing that's there. And it's a joy to be able to do that, to be inspired to write something and then see that catching people's attention and starting to make a difference and supporting them. I've had folk contact me from all over the world. There's a good friend now called Amelie who's in Mauritius, and she's now starting up outreach work and support work across Mauritius. And one of the inspirations for that was connecting through the Additional Needs Alliance and also the Additional Needs Blogfather work to just think about ways to make that a support and a help for families in her patch of the world. So great to be inspiring others to do some good stuff too.
So just as we're kind of like, maybe I could talk and listen to you for hours, Mark, but just as we're kind of wrapping up, what would you say to people that are at the beginning of their journey as they're beginning to wonder, I wonder what might be going on for our child, or what would you like to say to encourage parents as they're maybe beginning that journey?
I would say to not shy away from it. It can be easy just to ignore it and think, let's not do anything. It might just all go away, or just to feel I'm not sure I'm ready to engage with this yet, and those sorts of feelings can be common. I think what I would say is reach out to folk that are on that journey, that can be a guide, that can be a help, that can signpost towards places where you can get some more answers. The earlier that we can find out more about our child and the journey that they're on, and then the journey that we're on as a family, the more we can do to support them and help them and make a positive difference for them. So I would encourage families that are new to this journey to embrace it and seek out that help. And thankfully, 20 years on from when we were on that journey with James to start with, there's much more support out there now than there was then. So whether it's some of the stuff I'm doing or other things that are out there, there's lots of folk out there now that are helping in this area. Seek that help, seek that support. Don't be frightened of it. And let's work together to find out more about your child and what all that means, and to help and support you on that journey that you're now embarking on yourselves.
Thank you, Mark. And we'll put all of these links in the show notes. and I highly recommend Mark's webinars. Definitely, wherever you are on your journey. I don't think you ever stop learning, do you, Mark?
Absolutely, yeah. Every day's a school day, as somebody said, and absolutely that's true. 20 years on, we're still learning stuff every day ourselves.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Mark, for taking your time. So we're closing off now. This is the end of the show with Mark Arnold from Urban Saints for Even the Dog Has ADHD because apples don't fall far from trees and it's never just one.